Okay, in this screencast we'll be looking at our little friend here, the chloroplast. We'll be looking at the process that's happening there, which is photosynthesis, and the main stages that are involved in photosynthesis. So let's look at an overview of photosynthesis. The purpose of photosynthesis is to produce glucose or carbohydrates, which the plant will use for respiration. The plant's unable to walk down the shops and buy some food, so it needs to produce its own. And it does that by combining carbon dioxide and water molecules, and that's going to give it all the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen molecules it'll need to make glucose, and it'll produce oxygen gas. And we can think about the gas as being the opposite of what animals do. They're taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen, the opposite of what animals will do. Okay, so just having a look at an overview of the photosynthesis equation. This will be the equation that you guys are pretty familiar with. And just to recap our molecules involved here, our purpose is to produce glucose. Okay, this is the whole purpose of photosynthesis. And to do this, to get the molecules, we need the carbons and oxygens, the hydrogens and oxygens. They're coming from carbon dioxide and water. And a byproduct is oxygen. Chlorophyll, the green stuff that we find in leaves and chloroplasts, is needed to make the reaction happen, and sunlight. Now we'll just take this equation a little bit further. The way we're writing our equation this year is we'll just be extending a little bit, and we just want to show that we know that water is produced during some stages of photosynthesis. Okay, and to do this and to balance things out, because we're adding 6 molecules of water, we add an extra 6 molecules on this side as well. And although the summary equation you guys were using last year is quite correct, this just shows a little bit more detail. Okay, so 12 water molecules as reactants and 6 water molecules as products, and the rest will be pretty well the same. So let's now have a quick look at our chloroplast and look at the structure there. The chloroplast is an organelle in the cell, and like all the organelles, it will have a membrane around the outside that will control substances passing in and out. Inside we have the fluid, which we call stroma, and that's where the light independent stage of photosynthesis happens. And we have these very obvious discs that occur in stacks, and these discs have thylakoid membranes around them, and that gives us the surface area for the light dependent stage of photosynthesis. And these are organised in little stacks called grana or grana. So as I've just mentioned, there's 2 main stages that we're going to look at, and we want to look at the inputs and outputs of both of these stages. Both are complex series of reactions, and we're really just looking at a summary of each of these stages. The first stage being the light dependent stage, the second stage the light independent. Some people refer to it as the light and the dark reactions, but certainly labelling it as a light independent, because it doesn't need to have it happen in the dark, is probably a little bit more. So let's look at the light dependent stage first. And the light dependent stage is really just a process where water is being split. And a water molecule is being split into hydrogen, and this is occurring on the thylakoid membranes in the chloroplast. When this occurs, we're producing ATP energy, which will be used to drive the light independent stage. And the hydrogen ions that are being produced are taken by a molecule called NADP. Slightly different than NAD, which is used in respiration. NADP, and it's a carrier molecule to carry the hydrogens to the light independent stage. The oxygen is a byproduct. So at this stage of photosynthesis, oxygen is released as a product. Let's just have a really brief look at the membrane where this occurs, and this is the thylakoid membrane of the grana, and you can see that there's proteins and a complex series of reactions, some of them called photosystems, which is where this light is being changed from light energy to energy to drive chemical reactions, and then can be used for the light independent stage. The next stage is the light independent stage, and this is a stage where we end up producing our glucose. So let's have a look at our reactants here in the light-independent stage. Our hydrogen ions are delivered by the NADP molecule. They were created in the light-dependent stage. We're also utilising the ATP energy that was created in the light-dependent stage to drive the reaction. Our final products being glucose and the 6 molecules that we talked about earlier. And to have a look at where these water molecules come from, if we look at the 12 hydrogens that are coming in and the carbon dioxide molecules here, if we go to balance this equation, we're going to need 6 carbon molecules. And really, those of you who know a little bit of chemistry can balance and see that we're going to have some leftover molecules. So water is a product at this stage of the reaction in the light-independent stage. Now, I should also mention that the light-independent stage is known as the Calvin cycle, the Calvin-Benson cycle sometimes, but more commonly the Calvin cycle. I don't know what happened to poor Mr. Benson. He doesn't quite get enough credit as Mr. Calvin. Quite often we see it represented in quite complicated diagrams, and it is a really complex series of reactions, so it's understandable that it is. There's lots of different products that you guys don't need to know. So in diagrams like this, we really need to just find out and go, what do I need to know? And it's really the inputs and outputs. The input is that we're going to have carbon dioxide. We're also going to have the hydrogen ions and the ATP. And the hydrogen ions and the ATP are coming from the light-dependent stage and are 2 products, the glucose and the water. So to look at this in a bit of a diagram representation and look at the light-dependent, light-independent reactions together and sort of summarise what we've been doing. We can see here, this is a diagram showing a chloroplast with the outer membrane, the stroma here, where the Calvin cycle is occurring, and grana with our thylakoid membranes where the light reactions are occurring. So let's start off with the light reaction. Our light energy, our sunlight, is giving us the energy to drive this reaction. And the first stage is the splitting of water, okay, with oxygen being one molecule that's split off as a product of this stage. The hydrogen atoms from here are carried by our NADP molecule with NADPH to the Calvin cycle, along with some ATP energy as well. These combined with carbon dioxide are the reactants in the Calvin cycle or the light-dependent stage. In this complex cycle, we produce 2 things. One being the glucose, and we also have another byproduct, which is some water. This glucose and sugar molecules, if they need to be stored by the plant, they'll be stored as starch.